Imagine a situation from your life where there were expectations on you. Certain ways you needed to act, things you needed to say or not say, stuff you needed to know, but you had no idea what the rules were. Relationships are full of these. Like, who knew there was a correct way to fold the towels? The little tri-fold method so they look nice in the cabinet, don't topple over. Yeah, not me. But shout out to my loving wife. I concede. Thanks for finally teaching me the right way. Now let's shift gears a bit. Imagine you're a teenager. You're driving home tonight. You get distracted for a moment trying to figure out what the heck was that guy talking about with the towels? And then, bam, blue lights in your rear view. Your heart starts pounding. You pull over nervously. Someone taps on your window and you're scared because you don't know what to expect or what to do. Instantly, the rules you don't know, explicit and implicit, the jargon you don't understand, the options you don't know you have. Your life might depend on them. Because the person who's expecting you to follow these rules has a badge, has authority, has a gun. You see it. And your breath tightens. Because you immediately remember a video you saw of police shooting and killing someone that looks about like you. Why? Why was it again? That's right, because according to them, that person broke the rules. The ones you really wish you knew right about now. This is America. To borrow from Donald Glover. Yeah, I'm going to go into this. We are policed by complex laws and methods. Yet our government and civics classes rarely teach how to navigate them. There is so much at stake in these police encounters, especially for groups who have been disproportionately targeted. So what if every school made space for students to consider, prepare to practice interacting with police as safely and effectively as possible? I've been a teacher for almost a decade in South Memphis, and over the past 5 years, I've collaborated with community stakeholders to create and incorporate a Know Your Rights unit into my government classes. The unit formed in the wake of highly publicized police killings and the increased trepidation of my students. And the preliminary results are encouraging. They indicate a real possibility that if incorporated into classes throughout the country, a Know Your Rights education could increase civilian self-efficacy, enhance police accountability, lessen incarceration such as those from self-incrimination, and possibly mitigate occurrences of violence during police encounters. Now, let me be clear from the outset. As long as personal and systemic racism exist, unjust laws and enforcement will exist. The effects of racism must be addressed from every single angle. The police are professionals, okay, given institutionalized power. They must bear responsibility for bias and undue police violence. This unit cannot replace that, but it can complement it by making important information more accessible to civilians. The unit begins by evaluating our positionality, okay? I'm white, while almost all of my students are black. This shapes their experiences, especially with this, in ways that are distinct from mine. At the same time, my family has been intimately impacted by incarceration and complex police encounters due to the presence of mental illness. As students share their unique impressions of police, it becomes clear that A, this content matters. It impacts everyone in class. B, there are many students who have only had negative interactions with police. And C, there are many misconceptions around what police and civilians can legally do. I'll be sharing my students' quotes throughout to center their voices. This student wrote, "I thought I had essentially no rights." Wow. Let's continue on. We then establish our objectives for the unit, especially to stay safe and minimize risk when interacting with law enforcement. I introduce a couple key qualifiers. First, legality is not morality. So while I will teach the specific laws as they are, I am not implying that they are as they should be, but rather, knowledge can be power. So knowing the laws as they are can be the first step to changing them. Next, that bias and racism are real. I can't attest that every police officer is going to respect the rights of all civilians. So it is important to be as informed and prepared as possible for best and worst case scenarios. We then begin our deep dive into the local laws and rights for interacting with police on foot, in the car, and at home. We detail matters like probable cause, passive consent, and the local nuances around filming the police. We practice key phrases such as, "Am I being detained?" "I do not consent to a search," and "Am I free to go?" Students discuss and decide for themselves best practices for interacting with law enforcement, such as avoiding running and sudden movements, always asking permission before reaching, and using mindfulness exercises to stay as composed as possible, even if faking it. My student reflected, writing, "I can control a situation by doing something as simple as being silent." We then learn the unique rights and protections that the law affords to police, such as being able to lie, conduct external pat-downs, or require exiting the vehicle of just about anyone at just about any time. Students get the chance to explore these details with a legal expert. We have either a lawyer or a law professor visit class for a Q&A. I then introduce the local hotlines for reporting police misconduct, what information they require, how to write an official complaint. I talk about the local organizations that exist to assist in situations of police misconduct. And the students often express that knowing there could be some recourse available afterwards might help them stay composed during a difficult encounter. We then move on to case studies and Socratic seminars. I show students videos of civilians strategically using their rights. The student wrote, "It showed me how to de-escalate a situation." We then focus specifically on the Sandra Bland arrest dash cam footage. I should note here that because of the graphic content, students have the option of an alternative assignment. But in the seminar, students often question the validity of the stop to begin with, and they point out the police officer should not have focused on merely compliance, but rather cooperating with Bland. They break down details like how the onlookers had the right to record despite the officer's directive to leave. They even acknowledge that the police officer had a professional responsibility to stay composed and de-escalate the situation. But at the same time, they discuss, could Sandra Bland have more strategically or effectively used her rights? They point out her misunderstanding of thinking she had the right to stay in the vehicle. The question often comes up in these seminars. What if the officer and Bland had taken this unit? Could it have changed things? Could society be different if every future police officer started learning civilian rights in high school? If every civilian was trained on how to use their rights, and the police generally expected them to? My student wrote, "I can have all the rights in the world, but if I don't know to use them, they are useless." Every year, we partner with a police officer, usually that's connected to our school community, often a parent of a student. And each year, that officer has taken an entire day off to answer students' questions about their training and experiences. The officer often is amazed at my students' knowledge about their rights, while the students gain a whole new understanding of the real fear and difficulty of the situations that the police encounter. They need to see this perspective. The student wrote, "It taught me that there is a line between being subservient and being respectful." Finally, we move on to apply all of our learning to a Know Your Rights interactive theater. Students practice key rights, key words, de-escalation strategies by role-playing a variety of possible police encounters. One student wrote, "The most important thing I learned was to remain calm and be mentally prepared." The 278 students I've surveyed overwhelmingly report feeling more empowered as a civilian. They report feeling more prepared for police interactions and better equipped to handle them more positively. They also report being more likely to advocate against police brutality and teach others about their rights, while also expressing less fear of police interactions. Now, these results are astounding to imagine on a nationwide scale, but I wondered, after being exposed to multiple examples of police misconduct, even role-playing such, would my students' opinions of police decline? But that was not at all the case. 96% of students reported a steady or improved opinion of police. Now, wanting to understand what was going on here, I dug deeper into the data. And almost every student that reported an improved opinion of police was also more likely to advocate against police brutality and teach others about their rights. So how could this be? The students told me that knowing the system legally protected some of the problematic things police do shifted some of their focus away from a given officer and on to changing the system as a whole. My students must survive. They must be able to stay safe and navigate the system so that they can impact the system. By no means have I developed the perfect or complete approach. So how many of you are educators, or at least know one? Could you incorporate or improve upon this Know Your Rights unit? It's available for anyone to access at yourrightsedu.org. My student wrote, "It could help my family. It could save one of our lives." So let's return to that moment. You're a teenager. You're driving home tonight. The blue lights come on in the rear view. But this time, a fraction of that fear is replaced with a plan. A piece of that frustration is channeled into determination to stay composed and be strategic. Now, we know this has not guaranteed a safe outcome, but could it increase the chances? Thank you.